Okay. Hello and welcome, friends, to Melodie's Mindcast, a Melodie's Network production. I'm your host, Melodie Wolter, and here on Melodie's Mindcast, we explore the mind and unlock human potential through authentic conversations that educate, inspire, and connect us. Today's special guest has spent more than 3 decades helping people better understand complexities of the human mind, and perhaps more importantly, what it truly means to be human. I'm honored to welcome Dr. Peter Zafirides, a psychiatrist, a mental health educator, and co-founder of Central Ohio Behavioral Medicine. Throughout his career, Peter has guided thousands of individuals through depression, ADHD, anxiety, schizophrenia, grief, trauma, and life's most difficult emotional challenges. His work has also led him to explore the powerful connection between our emotional well-being and our physical health, helping us better understand stress, loneliness, grief, trauma, and how it can profoundly impact the body as well as the mind. What sets Peter apart is not only the decades of clinical experience, but his authenticity. He's been open about his own journey with depression, reminding us that mental health touches every life and that vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's often where healing begins. So, in today's conversation, we'll explore what more than 3 decades in psychiatry have taught him about the human mind. I can't wait. How COVID-19, the pandemic, changed our humanity, collective grief, loneliness, resilience, hope, and what each of us can do to build a better connected world. We'll also share the unexpected story of how one thoughtful social media post about loneliness brought us together for this conversation, a reminder that meaningful human connection can begin in the most unexpected places. And we'll get to know Peter beyond psychiatry as husband, father of three, lifelong runner, and in his own words, an average to below average guitar player, which I totally don't agree with. Without further ado, Dr. Peter Zafirides, welcome to Melodie's Mindcast.
Oh, Melody, thank you so much. I just listening to all of that, all I can think of is my mom, God rest her soul. I wish she could hear that introduction. She'd be, she would be really happy. But thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And before we even start talking about psychiatry, Peter, I'd love to start with you.
Yeah.
What first inspired you to become a psychiatrist? Was 4-year-old Peter thinking, oh, I'd love to help people with mental health?
No, it's really the strangest journey. If you would have told me when I started medical school that I was going to become a psychiatrist, I would have laughed you out of the room. I mean, it's just psychiatry, really? And I went through my rotations in the third year, and it just hit me right like a punch in the face. I was like, I couldn't believe how much I liked it. And I guess I was floundering a little bit. I maybe thought pediatrics, but I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And it's one of the biggest surprises of my entire life that I actually became a psychiatrist. And really, outside of meeting my wife, Sophia, and marrying her, this has probably been the most sure decision I've ever made in my life. So no, I would have never thought that. There wasn't this ever, ongoing
Wow,
love of psychiatry and psychology, but
I love it.
it's been amazing.
Well, looking back at over 3 decades now, what has your psychiatry journey, I guess, taught you about people that surprised you? Because you brought up surprises. What surprised
Yes.
you most?
Yeah, I don't know about necessarily what surprised me about people, but really what surprised me about myself and how I fit in the equation. Uh, Obviously, over these last 30 years, the stigma and the hesitancy of approaching a psychiatrist or getting help has gotten a lot better. So that has definitely changed, and the openness of people coming in, talking about these things and not hesitating. But it's more the changes that I've seen or within myself and how I would approach the individual from when I first started coming out of residency. And I guess it's part of the process. You're kind of guarded. You've kind of learned all of the medications and the medical origins of all of these disorders. But it moved from just kind of leaning a little bit more on the doctor end to
Hmm.
prescribing medications to where I've come over the years to be more on the human end on engaging the individual, feeling more comfortable about talking to someone, being myself a bit more vulnerable, and not feeling like I'm crossing any boundaries to really tap into just that connection. So I think it's been an ongoing change for me. I can't say that I've perfected it, and I'm still learning more, kind of allowing myself a little bit more vulnerability about myself, yet not exploiting from the individual, the session, or from the patient, and
Yeah.
finding just how much of a difference that makes in the overall healing of the individual.
So that leads me into the next question. It seems like this whole thing is just coming together so beautifully, and thank you for articulating that. So, what would one lesson that fundamentally changed how you see humanity? Because you and me, I see we post a lot about humanity, how things have changed. Has there been one lesson that fundamentally changed how you see humanity?
Gosh, that's a great question. Is there one that has changed how I've seen humanity? I guess the biggest change that I've seen is the openness and vulnerability of the individual. If I can just kind of tie it into my role here in psychiatry, the ability of people to come in and really be open, be vulnerable, and just admiring the strength that people have. They come in and they feel that like they're so weak, and they go
Hmm.
through incredible things. And I'm sure you've seen this as well, just traumas that have occurred, and so many barriers and difficulties. And really, just the strength that it represents just to get to here, to be here, literally. It's that's I think really has amazed me is the strength of the individual that's taught me quite a bit over the years.
Wow. So before we continue, we had talked about this a little bit before we got on. I love to share with our audience, our viewers, anybody that's listening about this how this conversation even came to be, because
Yes.
I think it's a story in itself. And ironically, we didn't meet through medicine or a conference or a
Mm-mm.
seminar or
Nope.
mutual colleagues. Would you like to explain to the audience how we met?
Well, we met simply online on a LinkedIn kind of post and connected in that way. And one thing led to another where you had mentioned that you have a program. And I said, well, if you can tolerate me, I'll come on your program. And it was just in just that little connection how it happened.
So I had been admiring your post ever since you started coming into my feed. And one day I came across a post you had written titled or alluded to, Loneliness May Be More Harmful Than We Think. And
Yes.
man, that stopped me in my tracks. And it wasn't just another article about mental health to me. It perfectly articulated feelings I had struggled with to put into words for probably 5 to 6 years now. And like so many others, the pandemic left me carrying profound sense of loneliness, disconnection, grief, and I knew something had changed inside of me, but I couldn't fully tell people what that experience was like. So finally, through the years, I started exploring it through my podcast. I wrote a book about the pandemic, 311, the day our world disconnected from isolation to isolation to transformation. And I started talking more about mental health because I know out of 8 billion people on this planet, we were all affected. So it was so beautiful to see that you have been really very candid in your social media posts, and it cannot be easy to put those things out there. And what kind of inspired you to kind of put yourself out on the limb and share with people?
Well, I think in the same way that I just discussed earlier, feeling more comfortable in being a bit more vulnerable and open in, say, the therapy session or my sessions here, I just thought to myself, this is a struggle that I've had, and if I'm not going to be able to talk about it, and try to praise, lowering stigma and being open, then what am I really saying? If I'm not going to be honest about myself. And I think that it is an important journey for people to see and understand that just because you're a psychiatrist or someone who's a specialist in this area, it doesn't protect you from a whole lot,
No.
and that we all can struggle and suffer, but we all can get better as well.
That's what I love about you, because you're so hopeful in your posts, and putting yourself out there candid makes other people, because of your professional and your credentials and how many years you have dedicated yourself. And I've listened to your stories, about your depression and uh, I guess your physical ailments with your knee and so
Yes.
forth, and the mind body connection. So you've been open about your own battle with depression. What made you decide now's the time to share this story? And when was it that you actually really started sharing?
Yeah, I think I've shared over. It's gone through periods, and this last time was when I came through another period of depression, and I thought I felt well enough where I think I want to focus a little bit more, rather than just giving informational kind of posts on, say, LinkedIn. To maybe just make it a little bit more personal, than just pure data that I'm going to give people. So I thought that might be a good way to share the story. But it was really coming through this last episode and deciding I'm going to go down this road rather than how I had done it in the past with graphics and things like that. And hopefully it can touch more people and be more meaningful to them if they can hear something within that story that connects. And if it does, can it make them feel a little bit less alone? And if that's the case, well, then that's a total win-win.
So what would you say to someone who is really silently struggling today? Because I know that there's so many people in my sphere of contact in this world, and I work in the mental health care space. Um, what do you say to someone that you can see is really struggling?
Yeah. Well, I would say to that person, you are not alone in your struggle. One of the things that depression will do will pull you inside of yourself. And we still fall prey, even though it's 2026, to the stigma and what it means to really admit to yourself or to others. But realizing that you are not alone in this. There are so many people who are struggling. But in that, there is a way through. And if you've never sought out treatment, you really owe it to yourself to do so. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's got to be a bunch of medications and where you've got to deal with side effects and all of that. But speaking with a therapist, speaking to your primary care doctor and letting them know how you're feeling, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
seeing a psychiatrist
Mm-hmm.
are important first steps. It's tough what depression does, and to the person who's not been through the treatment end of that, they feel totally alone and they don't feel that they're ever going to get out of it. And the reality is both of those things are not true. I've done this for 30 years and I've seen people routinely get better. And
And would you say to some people, and I'm not clinical, but for myself, like I would say, things happen in our life events. The longer you live on this earth, things are going to happen. And, if you're lucky enough to live long enough, like I have, I'm 58, things happen, right? And there's circumstances that happen. And it doesn't mean if you go out and seek medication that you're going to be on it for the rest of your life either. And I think
that's
people
right.
have this misconception that once I'm on this medication, I can never get off. Once I start therapy, it's never going to end. They feel that all these things, are going to happen. And getting back to the pandemic, one thing that I saw on one of your video podcasts, you had mentioned it. The one good thing about the pandemic was it opened the doors for telehealth and made mental health and therapy and psychiatry more accessible than ever, which I thought was so true and on point. But it also changed the world overnight. So I'm asking from your perspective as a psychiatrist, what do you think happened psychologically to humanity?
During the pandemic.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we're in a collective PTSD, I think, now.
Well, I think, the literal part of that pandemic was coming to terms with the reality that millions of people were dying, and this was lethal. And I don't know that we've been through that, at least in a generation or two, where we had to deal with that and the uncertainty of it. We were trying to do the best we could in the medical community and the research community, but it was still uncertain. What were the best practices to do? And despite that, people were still getting sick and were dying. How long was this going to last? And the fact that what we all used day to day, our coping skills with just being humans and around each other, completely went away. And while this is nice and it works, and I do think that people can derive benefit from these video communications, we are human beings that need to be around each other to feed off of each other's energy. And there's, you can talk to someone for a long period of time, but what difference it makes, say, in a session like mine, when we're done, I get up, I hug, the patient that I see, right? And I let them know it's going to be okay. Those things were lost to us during the pandemic. And I think that's where a lot of the psychological suffering came from.
So do you think that we are experiencing a collective trauma?
I think so. I mean, I think we're pretty resilient. I think if we look around now and ask people about it, I think many people will look at it in the rearview mirror and not be as affected as they were in the midst of it. But there are some individuals that have found it very hard to come through that. And for those individuals, it's a tougher process. Again, it was something that was very, very dangerous and lethal that we had not been through. And it literally was a trauma.
And what does healing even look like for not millions, billions of people? Nobody was spared in this planet, Peter.
That's right.
And I took some notes, and I was just like going through early on in the pandemic, suicide rates went up super high, especially in Japan for some reason. I don't know, but straight across the board. And what did you observe professionally?
Well, it became much more challenging. Depression escalated, and it was harder to see people get better. I think that even though we could do it in this way, I think it was much harder, and the disconnect impacted particularly those people that had a long-standing history of depression that it fed into, or anxiety. So I think the depression and anxiety was more aggressive in its presentation, and I think it was a little bit more resistant in its treatment during that time as well. So it left a lot of people not only struggling with their mood symptoms, but also feeling more hopeless because treatment wasn't coming as effectively.
So it's the whole mind, going back to you, mind-body connection, right?
Yes.
So how does stress, grief, loneliness physically affect your body? I've listened to your podcast, but I would like you to tell the viewers how it can physically affect your body.
It's true. It's true. And, this is something that I've been interested in most of my career, and there are wonderful, wonderful clinicians out there that are doing it to a much larger degree than I am. But in some of the teachings of particularly Dr. John Sarno, who believed that a lot of chronic physical issues represent emotional issues that are long-standing, and the body will do whatever it can to protect itself. And one of the things that can happen is physical symptoms that come as a result of emotional stress. And if we think about that as either an adaptive or an evolutionary advantage in the form of distraction away from trauma or mood symptoms that are too strong, that all of a sudden I'm not thinking about my trauma, but I'm thinking about my back pain, right? So there is also this adaptive mechanism that can happen in response to stress that the pain is created, or other physical symptoms. But we also know that of established medical symptoms, mood on top of it makes it so much worse. And probably part of what is happening there, when we're stressed, we become more inflamed. That's an evolutionary benefit, right? Because when were we stressed before? All of the niceties of today was when we were under attack. Maybe a tiger was coming after us or something like that. So when we
Right.
got anxious, we released all these inflammatory mediators into our bloodstream. In case we got hurt, we had a greater chance to survive. But today there isn't a tiger, but we're still releasing incredible amounts of stress and chemicals that can affect our ongoing body and physical illnesses that we may have. And I don't think that's, I mean, you look at it and you understand, well, probably why those that are stressed or depressed have higher rates of cardiovascular disease or obesity or heart issues. It is this mechanism that is happening.
Yeah, and with all of that, you're talking about fear. What was driving people was, yeah, the tiger chasing you. Now people are afraid to go online. The technology has connected us digitally, yet people feel more isolated than ever.
They are.
Why? Why?
I don't, it's, we are not adapted to this type of communication, right? I mean, it's just, people will tell me they just doom scroll, when they're depressed, and they're not really gaining a whole lot of information, but it's almost a distractive kind of obsessive loop that occurs. But I think that when we look at the availability of content, of information, it's unending and it can be limitless. And that is not how man has operated throughout his history. So here, I think if you've got this ongoing onslaught of information, even if it is beneficial and it's not traumatic, but it's coming and it's coming, at some point we adapt by shutting down. We can't take in this information. So I just think that it's a testament to the time. While there's so many advances that are occurring, it still is within a shell of us that is not used to taking it in this way. So we haven't necessarily built the coping skills or understood, like, how much do I take in? Like, if it's non-ending and I can sit on Instagram or X or what have you and just take in limitless, well, like, how long do I do it? Or when does it become harmful for me? I don't have the answers for that, but it is just, we're not used to it, and I think it just becomes overload.
So, Peter, do you think social media has made us more connected or just less lonely? Because I vacillate between the two. I mean, sometimes I feel more connected, and sometimes I feel more disconnected and lonely.
Yeah. I think it's both. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. And what I tell people and what I try to remind myself is the key there is checking in with yourself, right? If you're on social media and you're enjoying it and your overall sense of yourself is, this is fun, I'm happy, I'm enjoying it, that's one thing, right? More power to you, because there is a wealth of information and fun things and enjoyable things that we can enjoy.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
But checking in with yourself, if you find that you're reverting to that to try and deal with anxiety, or because you just don't want to do anything else and there's nothing else to do where it becomes deleterious for you, well, then that's another thing. So I think one of the ways that we look at that is, how am I feeling and what is the purpose of what I'm doing right now?
So, what concerns you most about the future of human connection? Boy, we probably could talk hours about that, but I would love to get your insight.
Yeah, my fears, and I don't want to be the 60-year old guy, screaming from the garage, look how much has changed. I guess we were talking probably about this, who knows, in the 70s and the 80s, when mass media came on with cable and all of that, and it's a new form of information that we're taking in. But I think it's different in that, again, the availability of it, the ease of it, and really now not knowing, having enough data to see how much this is really helping or hurting us. And I think that I want to stay positive. I think even AI can be very, very beneficial. So it's not like I'm, any kind of Luddite or anything like that. I welcome all of this and I love to see the technology. But I worry about just, okay, we've got the technology, but there's two people sitting at a coffee shop and they're both having a cup of coffee while they're on their phone.
I know.
Or we're at dinner and half of the table is on their phones and not talking to each other. Again, the phone isn't the evil, but it's just, I worry about those little touches of humanity that are so important and that matter and that remind us and connect us to each other. So I have a feeling, though, that the younger generations will come to a realization of that and will probably rebel a bit
You
in
think?
terms of maybe going back to the old ways.
Mm,
So I wonder in that because I see my kids, they're 14, 15, and 17, and while they have this a lot, they're still spending quite a bit of time with each other, and it's not like we're doing a whole lot of yelling, like, get off that phone. So I just wonder if there might not necessarily be a backlash, but that young kids themselves also see that there's kind of something wrong. And they, in
they
as much as they
do.
get lost in it, maybe they get out of it as well. So I try to stay hopeful and positive for the younger generation.
No, I think that's great. And that's a great attitude. And, I like to think of myself sometimes as delusionally optimistic and positive because why choose being negative? The alternative isn't that good. And, being in the mental health care field for now 15 years, non-clinical aspect, doing marketing and social media, I've seen a lot. And I think the stigma has really changed and it's gotten so much better.
Yes.
But how do we continue reducing the stigma even more?
Well, I think it's things like this. I think it's educating the younger generation and letting them know early on that these things can happen and it's okay. And what you shouldn't do is pull back or away. Right? We're both about the same age, and we know what it was like growing up. And I can't say that I had a huge awareness of emotional issues. My parents were immigrants. We didn't talk about it a whole lot. So, I think that's gotten better just within a generation or two. So I think that that's important. And what I'm not trying to say is when you improve stigma or lessen stigma, that doesn't mean the reason we're doing that is so you can come in and see Peter and get medication. That's not what I'm talking
Mm,
about. What I'm talking about is just being able to have that conversation where maybe a friend talks to another friend that I'm not feeling well. Maybe a brother or a sister goes to a mother or a father and just says, this is what I'm feeling. Because sometimes it's the connection more so than the medication itself. And I've certainly seen this in practice where if I'm relying just on medications and I'm not speaking to this person as a human being and there's not a connection, I don't know how much the medications can overcome the absence of that. I think they're effective, no doubt, but I think part of why people heal is that they feel connected to each other. So when I say lessening stigma, it's just opening the awareness that these things exist and that it's okay to talk about it, not that you have to go to a psychiatrist and get Zoloft.
well, if you could change mental health care tomorrow, what would be the first thing that you would change?
Oh, gosh.
I have a feeling I have one that's at the top of my head, but I want to hear what you say.
Yeah, I think what I would want is there just to be much more openness and awareness and discussion of all of this, right? That it's okay, that you have no idea how common this is, that you are not alone, and that it's okay to talk about these things, and that doesn't mean you're crazy in any way. So I think, just being able to have those discussions is what I'd want first and foremost, really. What were you
So,
thinking?
that was one of them. But I was thinking about the mental health care industry, really. I should have used the word industry in there.
Yeah,
So that was unfair. And I was thinking about, unfortunately, the barriers to getting mental health care is insurances. And, a lot of people don't have those. But the nice thing about what we said about the pandemic, the availability with telehealth and insurances covering the psychiatry and the therapy through most of the insurance benefits now has been very helpful. But that's what I was thinking about the
gotcha.
healthcare
Yeah,
industry.
absolutely. That's very true.
But moving on, life beyond psychiatry, I want to talk about something that is near and dear to you: running.
Yes.
Running has been an important part of your life. And after your knee injury, what did you experience what did that experience teach you about identity, resilience, and mental health?
Yeah,
And the
it
core,
was
kind of the correlation. Yeah.
absolutely. No, it's a great question, and I'll dovetail on that as well. A recent back injury that also has kind of sidelined my running and how I'm trying to get back into it. But yes, I mean, one of the other biggest surprises of my life was how much I liked running. And I always tell people I would have never thought I'd run, and eventually have done a marathon. But in high school, I think I did a 16-minute mile, and then I think I vomited into a trash can because they made us all run. So I'm like, I've always had that image in my mind that there's no way I can run. Remember what happened in high school, Peter. But it really was wonderful to, find out how much I loved it, and it was a great release. And I don't know that I necessarily like the running itself, or running allows me to listen to music for a period of time, a half hour to an hour, and maybe it's a combination of both. The knee was a setback, and the back has been a little bit of a setback as well. And it just, with regards to the earlier injury, it was really um, the encouragement and the expertise of my PT, Sarah, who continued to let me know that what happened was not a ending of your running injury. So you're going to get back to it, and believing in her, and just trusting her in everything that she did to rehab me back. Also, my surgeon was phenomenal. So it was great. It took a little bit of time, but slowly, as we get back into it, it builds confidence. And I have to say, this current, hill that I'm trying to climb, or amount of adversity has been the same. Just trying to take it step by step, not pushing myself too hard, and trusting in those who are helping me to kind of fully recover back to health.
So I've had back injuries, sciatica. I've had some issues myself, and it's very debilitating, and I'm super active. So when I have an injury and I can't do something, it makes me crazy. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to. So is it the injury that's making you depressed? Or I'm trying to figure out, like, because I know that you said that depression can show up as a physical ailment, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it can go both ways, right? The back pain itself, we know that there are emotional origins of physical symptoms, but let's assume that it is an injury for whatever for reason. And I'll just speak for myself with regards to the back pain, and it's something that I talk about also, about the two levels of suffering that we have to understand that we go through. First off is my back pain, and that hurts and it sucks, and I don't like it at all. But the other level of suffering is the meaning that I put to it. And that I've found is more impairing to me than the actual physical pain. And by the meaning, I mean, what do I feel when I have this back pain? And I tell myself, am I ever going to run again? Am I ever going to run again as long? Is this going to continue forever? Am I going to be able to do things with my kids as I get older because now I have this back pain? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going into this catastrophic cycling that has nothing to do with the moment. So I think one of the best things that I've learned in those that have guided me in therapy has been, you've got to remember that part there, and thought stop that. You are hurting right now, today. That's all this means, and that is the reality. Anything else you add to that is part of your emotions and your own insecurities and anxieties. So you've got to remember that. And that has helped quite a bit for me to be able to say, and I don't always succeed, but it's like, Peter, remember, this is just right now. I've had days that are better. They do get better, and I have been able to return to my activities. And that is a reality as well. So it's those two layers of suffering, the actual pain, and then the meaning that we put to that pain, that can be an incredible 1-2 punch to our emotional well being.
I know this may sound silly, but I gotta ask, how do you know yourself? Like, as like, did you know you were depressed? You like looked yourself in the mirror, like, Peter, you're not yourself anymore. What did that look like? Or did your family say, hey, you're not yourself? Or did you notice you were having like panic attacks? If you don't mind sharing these
Yeah,
things
of
with
course.
people so
No,
that they
no.
feel.
Yeah, no, for me, it was a combination, but mostly me in terms of knowing that, I just wasn't feeling right. I wasn't feeling well. And just those symptoms of sadness and anxiety, and really kind of pulling away, not having a whole lot of enjoyment in my day to day. And then my wife, sharing with me in terms of what she was seeing and how hard it was for her to see those changes that were occurring to me. So it was a combination of both there.
And so, in your own journey, how did you, for the people that need hope, I mean, we all go through journeys in our life. Some people feel like the depression is going to last a long time, and long is all relative. To me, if you're depressed, like longer than 2 weeks seems like forever.
Yeah.
So, for the person that's depressed and what you've been through, what signs and symptoms can signs or of hope can a person look at, like, I'm starting to get better, like I'm okay, I'm coming out of this, I'm getting out of this
Yes.
darkness.
I think even before you actually say, hey, you're feeling better, maybe engaging a little bit more, whether it is with family members or with things that you'd like to do. There's maybe less of a hesitancy to engage in anything. Others around you may just say, hey, you're looking like you've got more energy. You seem like you're brighter. Maybe being able to focus a bit more and get things done a little bit more easily. But I think the probably the primary one is just getting through that hill of pushing to do things where
Yes.
depression can pull you away so hard, and sometimes the engaging occurs before the individual says, wow, I really feel better. And oftentimes that's it.
And this is one thing, I hope you can speak to this. People think they need motivation, or they wait for a perfect time to, I don't know, feel better. And you don't need the motivation. You have to use action, getting out of bed, going to brush your teeth, going for a walk outside, even if it's just around the block. Whatever you can do to activate your mind to get you out of the space of the four walls and the prison of your mind prison, right? And I
But
think that people feel very trapped, and they have this belief that it's going to last forever. So I try to help people look for those signs and symptoms of, like, when it's starting to lift the fog and things are going to get better. Outside of psychiatry, you're a husband, you're a guitar player,
oh God.
runner. Which role? I know you're going to tell me which one, but which role has taught you the most important thing about being human?
It's got to be my kids,
Yeah.
and being just having a family, and just how important that is, and how redeeming that could be for me personally. That's it. If I could dovetail back to circle back to one thing you said before, and I want to come right back to this if that's okay.
Okay.
But you had mentioned in terms of the motivation and not waiting for it, but engaging it. And I wish I had
Yeah.
the study here, but it's wonderful that you said that. Some recent research that showed that that's exactly it. It is not necessarily that you wait for the motivation, you wait until you're better to do the motivation, but actually engaging in those actions, even when you don't have it, will bring you to that motivation. So it's not waiting for you, actually go when you don't feel as well, and you pull the motivation forward. So that's really, really important. And it's
And it
funny that you said
relieves
that because there was some.
anxiety. It relieves anxiety. See, I wasn't doing certain things that I knew I needed to do, like starting my book, my channel, my podcast. They were things that I had that I kept saying, and I was not, I would, like everybody else, you come up with every excuse. Old, too old, not going to learn this, not going to learn that. It's too
Yep.
much work. And I did it under a year, and I did it myself. And
There you
so
go.
I'm proud of myself for doing that. But it was the action. Once I started the action, my anxiety decreased.
Yes,
And
yes,
that's what
yes.
I want to share with people too. It's like, once you start on the thing you need to start,
No, no, that's
your
so
taxes.
that yeah, that's so important. I'm so happy that you brought that up, because it really is. You don't wait for the motivation. Once you start, you'll pull that with you, and you'll get that motivation. You'll see, you'll feel better. So I just wanted to bring that up. So sorry for kind of
Thank you. No,
pulling
that's
back
great.
to that. Yeah.
Well,
But
we were
yeah,
talking about being we were
as a
talking
human,
about
yeah.
being a dad, and I was wondering how did your kids now? I mean, they're older now, right? I was wondering how they felt having a dad as a shrink.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. My 14-year-old, my daughter, doesn't call me dad. She calls me shrink. So it
No,
just cracks
she
me
doesn't.
up, and I love it. She's like, "Good night, shrink," and she'll come in and give me a kiss. So it kills me because because she's seen my email is Zaf Shrink. So she's like, "Shrink, what does that mean?" I said, "Yeah, that's what they call psychiatrists." So she's like, "Okay, Shrinky." So that's what she calls me. So it's interesting. They really, the younger generation, I think, just they don't have as much of these hangups. So it's not really like no one comes in like of their friends and says, "Oh man, you're a psychiatrist." What is that? Is that all crazy people? They're like, "Oh, you're a psychiatrist? Okay."
I have
So it's
mental
like,
health. Now it's like the younger kids are actually saying, because I work a lot with adolescents, it's like they all have mental health. It's like
yeah,
totally okay to talk about your trauma, ADHD, and it blows my mind. But it does make me feel like, okay, we're doing something right,
I
at
think
least.
so.
Right?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
So after everything you've witnessed over decades, are you hopeful about humanity? I know things are never going to be the same as they were after the pandemic.
As you had said, kind of a delusional optimist. I am hopeful for humanity. I don't think there's ever been a generation that has wondered into the future. Could this be the end because of this? Whether it was radio waves, whether it was
Mm-hmm.
nuclear energy or war or what have you. And I think that one, let's remember we're human and we fall into these cycles, and part of it is worrying about the end of the world. But the likelihood of that is very, very low. That's the reality. And I think that we'll always be scared about new things that come out and AI in the future and all of that. But we also forget that we're human beings and we adapt. And I don't know that maybe I'm being, foolish in terms of just AI taking over and eliminating, anything that humans do. I, I, I don't know that will happen. And if it does, maybe it's in a muted way. But as the future goes, I'm very, very optimistic for the future.
Well, going back to some of your loves and your roles in your life, psychiatry, being a dad, music, that's played a big role in your life.
Yes.
Um, when did that start? And is it like a form of therapy for you? You know, how long have you been playing guitar, and do you play other musical instruments?
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't play any other musical instruments, and I can't say I play this one well. I've always loved the guitar, but never really took enough lessons. And it was something that really kind of started probably 7, 8 years ago, where I just
Oh,
decided, well, I'm just going to pick this up, and I don't have to be perfect with this, but there's so much available online with YouTube and lessons. So, and there was special music that I liked that I wanted to learn how to play. So I didn't have to be the perfect guitarist, and that wasn't my goal. But it was just something that I could relax with and meditate away from. And I also, kind of like running, liked to see that I could progress. And what it looked like maybe in 2019 is different than what I looked like playing in 2021, and that was possible. I could do that, and the satisfaction that kind of comes from just learning and not having to be perfect, but at least being better than you were maybe 6 months ago or a year ago or 5 years ago.
are you still playing?
I still am playing. It has been on hiatus a little bit with some home renovations that we're doing, but I hope to get back to that here in the next hopefully few weeks.
Well, and
And
I think it's fascinating that you decided to pick up the guitar later in life. And I think that people, especially around our age, Generation X and beyond, or even just people that are getting older, they always feel like, oh, it's too late for me to try something. I'm like, any skill is learnable if you want to do it, right? And
it's
how
so
did
true.
you learn? Did you go to YouTube and you just started picking up?
It was just YouTube. I mean, I haven't gone for any lessons. And again, I'm not I'm not that great of a guitarist. I mean, you start asking me to play certain specific chords and things like that. I'm like, I don't know exactly what you're talking about. So, but within the context of what music I really wanted to learn and how to learn it, almost all of it was through YouTube. There's some amazing content out there, and I think it's for anything. Like you had said, if there's something you really enjoy doing and want to do, want to learn to do, there is so much out there that is possible.
It's amazing. It's amazing. YouTube University.
It
I had
is.
my I had my channel open for years and I didn't do anything with it until April of 2025. And now I have over 100 long form videos. I started my own podcast and I've been on multiple podcasts around the world. And I just put it out there. It was just by doing it. And I started feeling better.
Yes.
My anxiety started to relieve. And I formed Melodies Network. And my mission, which I shared with you, is to end loneliness. That is
Yes.
my mission.
Yes.
And Peter, if there's one thing every listener could do today to help reduce loneliness, not only in themselves, but in someone else, what would you encourage them to do?
I would encourage anyone to simply reach out. Reach out to another individual. That doesn't mean that you have to go and have a coffee with them or go to dinner, although that would be wonderful. But reach out by text and really say, I'm thinking of you. How are you? I wanted to reach out. How's everything going? I recently saw a study that was done where they had followed 3,000 patients, inpatient, and of those 3,000, 800 or so had left the hospital early. They didn't want any part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Arguably some of the hardest to treat individuals. So they
Mm-hmm.
broke those two, or they broke those 800 individuals into two groups, and one group got a letter that was sent to them every few months. The others did not get the letter. And the letter was simply, hey, how are you? Thinking of you since the hospital. Hope you're well, Sarah or Peter. Or that's all they got. There was nothing else. And what they found in the first 2 years, there was a statistically significant separation of suicide rates in the individuals that got the notes versus not. So
Say
just
that again.
simply
Say
getting,
that again, please.
so what they found was there was a significant separation, meaning that there was a significant difference in those that got the letter and didn't get the letter in terms of the suicide rate. People,
Wow.
they saved lives simply by sending a letter, and a letter that had nothing on it other than, I'm thinking of you, hope things are well, get in touch if you'd like. That's it. There was nothing else that was sent, and there was not any therapeutic intervention. These were people who left the treatment. So, in that, it hit me right in the face like a shovel in terms of never
Amazing.
discount how important you are in connecting with someone, the difference that can make. And that we can do digitally as well. So that's why I say the one thing that you can do is connect. That's it. Hey, Melodie, I'm thinking of you. It's been a while. Hope you're doing well. I'm going berserk over here, but just wanted to say hello and that I'm thinking of you. You just don't know the difference that can make in an individual. And from what we see in research, it can be profound in literally saving lives.
And you made my day when you messaged me on LinkedIn. You made my day by
I
reaching
appreciate
out.
that. Thank you.
I really mean that. Finally, if every listener remembered just one message from today's conversation, what would you want that message to be?
Hmm. I guess from first on a professional level, when you're wondering or worried about seeing a professional or a psychiatrist or a psychologist, I always tell people, remember, this should be the measure. It is my privilege to see you, not the other way around. So in that, it is important that that treater that you see, that is what you're feeling, because that is someone then who will care and will stick with you. Okay, so it is my privilege to see you. On a personal level, I just say, as someone who's gone through this, no matter how bad you think it is, no matter how alone you feel you are, there is always help. And that does not mean that you have to see me and get on a medication. But there are ways through what you're suffering with, whether it is anxiety, whether it is depression, and you are not too far gone and you are not alone.
Thank you so much for that message.
Sure.
So we're going to be closing out here. I got a couple of rapid fire questions. Nothing too crazy. First one is favorite musician or band?
Devo from the 1980s. Absolutely. You can see my Devo dome right there. So yeah, and you too. So they're a close second.
Okay. I didn't expect Devo. I thought you were going to say you too. Biggest misconception about psychiatry.
Biggest misconception about psychiatry was that that this was all about crazy people and that no one ever got better. And was it really real in the first place?
Most underrated mental health habit.
Just pure exercise, simple exercise, walking.
One habit everybody should practice every single day.
Move. Please move. Whatever it is, walk, run, anything. Move.
This one's great. If you weren't a psychiatrist, what would you be?
Oh, God. Oh, man. I'd probably try to audition for Devo.
Finish this sentence. Being human means
being able to see the beauty of life and the importance of connection with another individual or other human beings, and how important that is in understanding where we fit in this world.
So beautifully articulated and a wonderful way to close this out. Dr. Peter Zafirides, thank you. Not only for sharing your remarkable professional expertise, but for sharing your humanity, your willingness to speak openly about depression, loneliness, resilience, emotional realities we all face, and reminds us that mental health isn't that something that belongs to other people. It's a part of every one of our lives. And that inspires someone to make a phone call, a text, check in on a friend, reconnect with a loved one, ask for help, and simply remind another person that they truly matter. Because healing begins with connection. And one conversation can change or save a life. One act of kindness can restore hope. And one person reaching out to another can make all the difference in the world. If today's conversation resonated with you, please share this episode with someone who really needs to hear it. Together, we can continue breaking the stigma surrounding mental health and building a world where there is no struggle alone. Until next time, I'm Melodie Wolter. Thank you for joining me on Melodie's Mindcast, and please remember to always be kind to your mind. Take care.